Imagine if you found a wallet with $10,000, enough to save your dying mother, and no one was watching. This is the story of Chidinma, a struggling immigrant cleaner who chose honesty over survival. But what the billionaire did when she returned, it will leave you speechless. Stay tuned. Let's dive into this incredible story. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new to this channel, and give this video a thumbs up. Smog hung like a dirty blanket over Los Angeles, turning the late afternoon sun into a pale, bloodless disk behind the downtown skyline. Chidinma Thomas, 29, bone-tired and dressed in a faded blue uniform that had seen better years, pushed her cleaning cart down the silent hallway of the Grand Beverly Hotel's penthouse floor. The carpet beneath her squeaking wheels was thicker than her mattress at home. And the chandelier overhead, dripping with crystals, probably cost more than she'd earn in a lifetime. On good nights, she could pretend the polished marble floors were frozen lakes she was gliding across. Pretend the golden elevator doors were portals to somewhere better. Somewhere her mother wasn't dying in a county hospital bed with a ventilator breathing for her. But tonight, the walls felt like they were closing in. The air conditioning was too cold. That felt fitting. Her life had been short on warmth since the day her mother collapsed in their studio apartment in Koreatown 6 weeks earlier. She remembered that morning with cruel clarity. Her mother gasping on the linoleum floor, the 911 operator asking questions while seconds bled away, and the paramedic at the door demanding to see her insurance card before he'd even check her mother's pulse. The hospital bill arrived 3 days later. $847,000 for emergency surgery and ICU care, a number so large it didn't feel real. Her supervisor at the hotel, a woman named Karen with perfectly straightened blonde hair and a diamond tennis bracelet, had smiled thinly when Chidinma begged for a salary advance. "Honey, if you can't afford to live in America, maybe you should go back to wherever you came from." And Karen's words carried the weight of a deportation order. Within hours, Chidinma became invisible in her own workplace, scrubbing toilets while her co-workers whispered that people like her were always looking for handouts. From that day on, she moved through the hotel like a ghost nobody wanted to see. Nighttime meant survival math. Chidinma's shift began at 3 p.m. and ended whenever the last guest stopped treating her like furniture. Today, that meant midnight. Her knees ached from 7 hours of scrubbing bathroom tiles in suites that cost more per night than she made in a month. Room 1804 had left champagne bottles scattered across the floor like fallen soldiers. Room 1807 had somehow managed to get lipstick on the ceiling. Room 1812, the presidential suite, was scheduled for tomorrow, but she could already see the "Do Not Disturb" sign glowing like a warning from down the hall. She checked her phone during her 15-minute break in the basement locker room. 3 missed calls from Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. 2 text messages from the billing department. 1 voicemail she couldn't bring herself to listen to because she already knew what it would say. "Your account is past due. Your mother's continued care is contingent upon payment." Her mother, Grace Thomas, had been a housekeeper too. Spent 30 years cleaning other people's homes in Lagos before saving enough to bring Chidinma to America on a student visa that promised opportunity. But opportunity in Los Angeles meant working 3 jobs to afford a 1-bedroom apartment where the water heater only worked on Tuesdays, and the landlord responded to maintenance requests with eviction threats. The stroke had come without warning. One moment, her mother was folding laundry on the couch, humming an old hymn. Next, she was on the floor, her face twisted, her words garbled into sounds that didn't mean anything anymore. The ambulance ride alone cost $3,000. The ICU stay ballooned into 6 figures before Chidinma even understood what a deductible was. She kept the hospital bills in a manila envelope on the kitchen table because she couldn't afford a filing cabinet. Sometimes, late at night, she'd spread them out like tarot cards, searching for a future that didn't end in bankruptcy or her mother's death. The numbers blurred together. $12,450 for the CT scan, $38,920 for the neurosurgeon, $186,000 for the ICU, and every week a new bill arrived, each one stamped in red. Final notice. Her coworker, Sarah, had suggested she just stop paying. They can't squeeze blood from a stone, girl. Let it go to collections. What are they going to do, deport you? But Chidinma couldn't let it go. Couldn't let her mother die because some algorithm decided her life wasn't worth the cost. So she worked, picked up double shifts, skipped meals to save $7, took the bus for 2 hours each way instead of the train to save $3.50. And every night she'd visit her mother's hospital room, sit beside the beeping machines, and hold her hand. The only thing in America she'd ever touched that didn't cost extra. Tonight Chidinma clocked out at 12:17 a.m., her uniform soaked with sweat and cleaning chemicals. The bus wouldn't come for another 40 minutes. She sat on the bench outside the hotel and stared at the palm trees swaying against the smog-orange sky. Survival math never added up to enough. The presidential suite smelled like money and regret. Chidinma pushed her cart through the double doors at 6 a.m., 2 hours before the morning shift usually started, because her supervisor had texted her at 5:30 with the kind of message that wasn't really a request. Pearson Suite needs to be perfect by 9. Don't make me regret giving you the overtime. David Pearson. She'd heard the name whispered by the front desk staff like he was a prophet, tech billionaire, founder of something called Helix Industries, the kind of man who booked the $10,000 a night suite and didn't blink. The kind of man who had people. But his people had clearly thrown a party. Empty wine bottles crowded the granite countertops. Champagne flutes stood abandoned on the grand piano like a congregation that had forgotten to pray. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown LA were smudged with handprints, as if someone had pressed their palms against the glass to feel what it was like to own the city. The air still carried the ghost of expensive cologne and cigar smoke. Chidinma worked methodically, stripped the king-sized bed, collected the towels from the marble bathroom, vacuumed the Persian rug that probably cost more than her mother's surgery. She was reaching under the leather sofa to grab a stray champagne cork when her fingers brushed something solid. A wallet, thick, heavy, Italian leather, the kind that felt like butter. She pulled it out and froze. It was black, minimalist, and expensive. The kind of wallet that didn't need logos because everyone already knew what it meant. She should have taken it straight to the front desk, should have logged it in the lost and found. Should have done a lot of things that didn't involve opening it, but she opened it. The cash hit her first. $100 bills, crisp and stacked so thick the wallet barely closed. She didn't count them. Couldn't. But her brain did the math anyway. 10,000, maybe more. Enough to make the hospital stop calling. Enough to buy her mother another month of machines that beeped and tubes that breathed. Behind the cash, tucked into a sleek card holder, was a black credit card. No spending limit. The kind of card that didn't decline, didn't ask questions, didn't care. Her hands started shaking. She looked toward the door. The hallway was empty. The security cameras in the penthouse suites were decorative. She'd learned that months ago, when a guest had accused her of stealing a watch he later found in his suitcase. No one was watching. No one would ever know. The wallet sat in her palms like a test she hadn't studied for. She thought about her mother's face, half paralyzed, trying to smile when Chidinma visited. Thought about the social worker who'd pulled her aside last week and used the word hospice like it was a mercy. Thought about the envelope on her kitchen table, the one stuffed with bills printed in red ink that screamed final notice like a countdown to something worse than death. $10,000. No one was watching. Chidinma found Sarah in the laundry room, folding king-sized sheets with the efficiency of someone who'd been doing it for too long. Sarah Martinez had worked at the Grand Beverly for 6 years, long enough to know which guests tipped and which ones complained about the thread count, long enough to stop believing in fairy tales. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Sarah said, not looking up from the fitted sheet she was wrestling into submission. Chidinma glanced toward the doorway, then pulled the wallet from her apron pocket. "I found this, in the Pearson suite." Sarah's hands stopped moving, her eyes locked onto the leather like a hawk spotting prey. "Is that— Yeah. Open it." Chidinma hesitated, then flipped it open. The stack of hundreds seemed even thicker in the fluorescent light of the laundry room. Sarah's breath came out in a low whistle. "Jesus Christ, how much is in there?" "I don't know. 10,000, maybe." 10,000. Sarah set down the sheet and stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Chidinma, do you understand what you're holding right now?" "I need to turn it in." "No." Sarah grabbed her wrist, firm enough to make her point. "No, you don't. Listen to me. That's David Pearson's wallet, right? The guy who just bought a yacht for $200 million. You think he's losing sleep over 10,000? That's a rounding error for him. That's what he spends on bottled water." Chidinma tried to pull away, but Sarah held on. "Your mother is dying in Cedars-Sinai right now because you can't afford the bills. How much do you owe? 50,000? 100? More?" Sarah's eyes were bright, urgent. "This money could save her life. You could pay off enough to keep them from pulling the plug. You could buy her real treatment, not whatever charity care bullshit they're giving her now." "It's not mine." "It is now. He left it. That's on him." Sarah's voice took on the rhythm of a closing argument. "Think about it. Pay the hospital. Get your mom stable. Hell, pay your rent for the next 6 months. Buy yourself a car so you're not spending 4 hours a day on the bus. Get your teeth fixed. When's the last time you went to a dentist? 2 years? 3. Chidinma's jaw tightened. Sarah noticed. "I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm trying to save your life. You think integrity pays bills? You think honesty keeps the lights on?" Sarah released her wrist and stepped back, crossing her arms. "Look around, Chidinma. We clean up after people who make more in a day than we make in a year. They don't even see us. We're ghosts. And now you have a chance, one chance, to stop being invisible." The wallet felt heavier. "Just take it," Sarah said softly. "Take it and disappear. Quit this job. Move to a different part of the city. They'll never find you. Pearson probably doesn't even remember what's in his wallet." "But you? You'll remember the day you chose yourself over some rich man who wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire." Chidinma stared at the money, at the black card, at the future that could be hers if she just walked away. Chidinma's apartment was a studio on the 3rd floor of a building in Koreatown that the landlord generously called vintage. The ceiling had water stains shaped like continents. The radiator clanked like it was trying to communicate in Morse code. The window overlooked an alley where people screamed at each other in 3 different languages every night around 2 a.m. She sat on her mattress, no bed frame, just a box spring on the floor, with the wallet on her lap and the bills spread across her thrift store comforter like evidence at a crime scene. 847,263 twain. That's what her mother's life cost, according to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. She'd counted the money in the wallet 17 times. $10,000 exactly. $100 bills, pristine and sequential, as they'd come straight from a bank vault. The math was simple. Cruel, but simple. 10,000 would cover 3 months of her mother's medication. It would keep the hospital from transferring her to a county facility where the nurses had patient ratios that guaranteed neglect, would buy time. Not survival, but time, and time was the only currency that mattered when someone you loved was dying in increments. Chidinma pulled one bill from the stack, held it up to the yellow light of her single lamp. Benjamin Franklin stared back at her with that knowing look, like he'd seen this moral calculus 1,000 times before. Just one bill. She could take just one. Pearson wouldn't notice. Couldn't notice. What was $100 to a man who bought companies the way normal people bought coffee? She could walk to the 24-hour pharmacy on Wilshire, buy her mother's blood pressure medication that insurance wouldn't cover, and put the wallet in the mail tomorrow morning with 99 bills instead of 100. A victimless crime. A rounding error. A mercy. Her phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. Grace Thomas is showing signs of distress. Blood pressure is elevated. Please call. Chidinma's hand closed around the $100 bill. Then she thought about her mother's voice, back when it worked, back before the stroke stole half her face and all her words. Chi-Chi, integrity is the only thing poverty cannot take from you. Guard it like gold. But gold couldn't buy medicine. Gold couldn't pay hospital bills. Gold was a metaphor, and metaphors didn't keep people alive. She put the 100 back, took out 2, put them back, took out 5. The night stretched on like an interrogation. By 3 a.m., she'd convinced herself that keeping it all was justified. By 4 a.m., she'd convinced herself that keeping any of it was theft. By 5 a.m., she was crying into her pillow, the wallet clutched to her chest like a Bible she'd stopped believing in. The sun rose over Los Angeles, turning the smog pink and gold. Chidinma hadn't slept, hadn't decided, hadn't moved except to count the money one more time, as if the numbers would change, as if the universe would offer her a sign. The wallet sat on her lap, still full. For now. Chidinma called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years. Her supervisor didn't believe her, but it didn't matter. Some decisions required burning bridges. She left her apartment at 7 a.m. with the wallet wrapped in a plastic grocery bag and stuffed into her purse. The Metro Red Line from Koreatown to downtown LA cost $1.75. Money she didn't have to spare, but stealing $10,000 somehow felt worse than starving. The train car smelled like urine and defeat. A man in the corner was arguing with someone who wasn't there. A woman in scrubs slept with her head against the window, exhausted from a night shift that probably paid $12 an hour. This was Chidinma's America, the one the billboards didn't advertise. She transferred to the Purple Line, then to a bus on Wilshire Boulevard that crawled through morning traffic like a dying animal. Through the window, she watched the city transform. The check-cashing stores and payday loan shops gave way to art galleries and boutiques with names she couldn't pronounce. The people on the sidewalks changed too. Less brown, more yoga mats, dogs and strollers. At the Westwood stop, she transferred again. The 2 bus goes toward Sunset Boulevard, an hour and a half into her journey, and she still had another hour to go. She clutched her purse against her ribs, feeling the weight of the wallet like a heartbeat that wasn't. The higher she climbed, the more absurd her mission became. She was returning $10,000 to a man who probably spent that much on lunch. A man who lived in a world so far removed from hers that they might as well have been on different planets. But she kept walking. By the time she reached Stone Canyon Road, her shirt was soaked with sweat, and her feet were screaming. The Pearson estate rose before her like something out of a movie. Cream-colored mansion, Roman columns, circular driveway with a fountain. She gripped the wallet tighter. This was it. The iron gates were 20 feet tall and topped with security cameras that swiveled like predatory birds. Chidinma pressed the call button on the intercom, mounted on the stone pillar. A camera lens zoomed in on her face with a mechanical whir that sounded like judgment. "State your business." The voice that crackled through the speaker was male, bored, and vaguely hostile. I'm here to see Mr. Pearson. I have something that belongs to him." A pause. Then laughter. Actual laughter. "Lady, Mr. Pearson doesn't take walk-ins, especially not from—" The voice stopped itself. But Chidinma heard the rest of the sentence in the silence. "I found his wallet," she said louder now. "At the Grand Beverly Hotel. I work there. I'm returning it." Another pause. The camera adjusted again, zooming closer. She could almost feel it cataloging her. The cheap clothes, the sweat stains, the knockoff purse, the wrong skin tone in the wrong neighborhood. The gate didn't open. Instead, 2 security guards emerged from a side entrance, both white men in their 30s wearing tactical vests that made them look like they were guarding a military base instead of a rich man's house. The taller one had a buzz cut and shoulders that suggested he spent his off hours at the gym. The shorter one had a radio clipped to his belt and a smirk that never reached his eyes. "Let me see this wallet," Buzzcut said, holding out his hand like he was addressing a child. Chidinma hesitated. "I'd prefer to give it to Mr. Pearson directly." "I'm sure you would." The shorter guard stepped closer, invading her space. "But that's not how this works. You show us what you allegedly found, we verify it, and then we decide if Mr. Pearson needs to be bothered." "I'm not trying to bother anyone. I just want to return what's his." "Uh-huh." Buzzcut's eyes narrowed. "Or you stole it and got scared. Figured you'd come play the hero before the cops showed up at your door." Chidinma's stomach dropped. "I didn't steal anything." "Then show us the wallet." She pulled it from her purse slowly, careful not to make any sudden movements. These men had guns on their hips and authority in their voices, and she'd seen enough news to know how badly this could go. The shorter guard snatched it from her hands before she could react. He flipped it open, whistled low. "Well, well, 10 grand in cash, black card. This is definitely Mr. Pearson's. Which is why I brought it back. Or why you stole it in the first place." Buzzcut crossed his arms. "What did you do, sweet-talk your way into his hotel room? Slip him something in his drink?" "I'm a cleaner. I found it under the sofa." "Sure you did." The shorter guard pocketed the wallet. "We'll take it from here. You can go." "Wait." Chidinma reached for it instinctively. Buzzcut's hand went to his gun, not pulling it, just touching it. A promise. "Step back," he said quietly. "Right now." Chidinma didn't step back. "I came all the way from Koreatown," she said, her voice shaking but holding. "I spent my last money on bus fare to do the right thing. I'm not leaving until Mr. Pearson knows I returned his property." Buzzcut's jaw tightened. "You've got 3 seconds to walk away before I call LAPD and have you arrested for trespassing." "For returning a wallet?" "For harassing private citizens on private property." The shorter guard unclipped his radio. "You want to spend the night in county lockup? Because that's where this is headed." Chidinma's heart hammered. She thought about her mother alone in the hospital, thought about losing her job for missing a shift, thought about everything she'd already sacrificed just to stand at these gates and be treated like a criminal. "I'm not leaving," she said. The shorter guard raised his radio to his mouth. "Control, we've got a 1057 at the main gate, requesting LAPD assistance." The roar of an engine cut him off. All 3 of them turned toward the circular driveway. A convoy was approaching from inside the estate, 2 black SUVs flanking a white Rolls-Royce Phantom that moved like a ghost. The vehicle stopped at the gate, the engine's purr barely audible but somehow commanding silence. The shorter guard's expression shifted from smug to nervous. "Shit, he's leaving." Buzzcut moved to wave the convoy through. "Open the gate." But the back door of the Rolls-Royce swung open before the gate could move. David Pearson stepped out. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Chidinma's yearly salary. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his beard trimmed with the precision of someone who had people for that. And behind aviator sunglasses that caught the morning light, his expression was unreadable, stern, imposing, the face of a man accustomed to being obeyed without question. Two men in black suits emerged from the SUVs, earpieces visible, hands hovering near concealed weapons. The guards at the gate straightened like soldiers. "Mr. Pearson, sir, we were just handling—" Pearson raised one hand. They stopped talking immediately. His head turned toward Chidinma. Even behind the sunglasses, she could feel his gaze, cold and assessing. He didn't speak, didn't move, just stood there in the driveway of his mansion, backlit by the fountain and the cream-colored columns, looking like a man who'd never been told no in his entire life. "Sir," the shorter guard said, holding up the wallet like an offering. "This woman claims she found your wallet at the Grand Beverly. We were about to send her away." "Were you?" Pearson's voice was deep, controlled, the kind of voice that didn't need volume to carry weight. "Yes, sir. Standard protocol for—" "I didn't ask for protocol." Pearson removed his sunglasses, folded them slowly, and slipped them into his jacket pocket. His eyes, sharp, dark, calculating, locked onto Chidinma. "I asked if you were about to send her away." The guard swallowed. "Yes, sir." Pearson's expression didn't change. He walked forward, his footsteps deliberate on the cobblestone driveway, until he stood directly in front of Chidinma. Up close, he was even more intimidating. "What's your name?" he asked. "Chidinma," she said, her voice barely steady. "Chidinma Thomas." Pearson extended his hand toward the guard without looking away from her. "The wallet." The shorter guard handed it over like he was passing a live grenade. Pearson opened it, his fingers moving through the bills with the casual familiarity of someone who'd counted them before. He checked the black card, examined the interior pockets. His face revealed nothing. "Tell me what happened," he said. Chidinma's mouth went dry. "I clean at the Grand Beverly. I found your wallet under the sofa in the presidential suite yesterday morning. I should have turned it in right away, but—" She stopped, unsure how much truth to offer a man who could destroy her with a phone call. "But," Pearson prompted. "I was tempted," she admitted. "I have medical bills. My mother is in the ICU. The money in that wallet could have saved her life." Her hands clenched at her sides. "But it wasn't mine, so I brought it back." Pearson studied her for a long moment. Then he turned to his security team, his voice cutting through the morning air like a blade. "How much is in here?" Buzzcut cleared his throat. $10,000, sir, plus your Centurion card." "And how much is missing?" "Missing, sir." "You heard me. Count it." The guard's face paled. He took the wallet with shaking hands and counted the bills while everyone watched. 100 bills. 10,000 exactly, sir." Pearson nodded slowly. "So this woman, who you assumed was a thief, traveled across Los Angeles, spent money she apparently doesn't have, and returned a wallet with $10,000 completely intact." He let that hang in the air. "Does that sound like theft to you?" Neither guard answered. Pearson turned back to Chidinma. "Do you know why I left that wallet in the hotel room?" Her heart stopped. "You left it?" "On purpose. Under the sofa, where only a cleaner would find it." His expression softened, just barely. "I've been looking for a new estate manager for 6 months, interviewed 43 candidates. All of them had perfect resumes, impeccable references, Ivy League degrees, and every single one of them failed." Chidinma stared at him, not understanding. "I don't need someone who looks good on paper," Pearson continued. "I need someone I can trust with everything I own. Someone who won't steal from me when I'm not looking. Someone who will do the right thing even when it costs them everything." He held up the wallet. "This was a test. You passed." The guards looked like they'd been slapped. "I had a GPS tracker in the wallet," Pearson said. I watched you take it home last night. Watched you sit with it for 9 hours. And then I watched you get on 3 buses to come here." He stepped closer. "That kind of integrity can't be taught, Ms. Thomas. It can only be found." Chidinma's eyes burned. "I don't understand." "I'm offering you a job, estate manager, 6-figure salary, full benefits, housing on the property if you want it." His voice dropped. "And I'll cover your mother's medical bills. All of them." The world tilted. Chidinma's knees buckled. She caught herself against the stone pillar, her vision blurring. You're serious?" "I don't joke about business." Pearson nodded to one of his suited men, who immediately produced a tablet. "My attorney will draw up the contract today. Starting salary is $180,000 annually, with performance bonuses. Health insurance that will cover your mother's care retroactively. You'll manage a staff of 22, oversee all household operations, and report directly to me." The guards stood frozen, their earlier arrogance replaced with the pale realization that they'd just tried to arrest their new boss. Pearson glanced at them, his voice turning cold. "You two are fired. Clear out your lockers by noon." "Sir, we were just following—" "You were following your assumptions, and you assumed that a black woman in cheap clothes couldn't possibly be honest." He turned his back on them dismissively. "I don't employ people who can't see what's in front of them." Chidinma's mind was spinning. "My mother, you said you'd cover her bills?" "All of them. I'll have my people contact Cedars-Sinai this afternoon. She'll be transferred to a private care facility in Beverly Hills by the end of the week. The best neurologists in the country. Whatever she needs." Pearson extended his hand. "Do we have a deal, Ms. Thomas?" She looked at his hand. At the man who'd tested her with money she desperately needed and a job she never dreamed she deserved. At the mansion behind him, which would soon be her workplace instead of a fantasy, she cleaned from the outside. She shook his hand. "Yes, sir. We have a deal." 3 weeks later, Chidinma stood in a sun-filled room at the Montecito Recovery Center, watching her mother sleep in a bed that didn't beep every 30 seconds. The private facility looked more like a luxury hotel than a hospital. Real plants in the corners instead of plastic ones. Windows that opened. Nurses who smiled and knew her mother's name. Grace Thomas's face was still half paralyzed, her words still broken, but her eyes were clear when she looked at her daughter. She raised one trembling hand and touched Chidinma's cheek. "Proud," she whispered, one of the few words she could still form. "So, proud." Chidinma kissed her mother's forehead, careful not to disturb the oxygen line. "You taught me well, Mama." Outside the window, the Pacific Ocean stretched toward the horizon, endless and blue. Chidinma thought about the girl she'd been 3 weeks ago, exhausted, desperate, invisible. Thought about the wallet she could have kept, the life she could have stolen. But stolen things never fit right. They hang on you like borrowed clothes, always reminding you they don't belong. Integrity, her mother had said, was the only thing poverty couldn't take. Turns out, it was also the only thing wealth couldn't buy. And in the end, it was worth more than all the money in David Pearson's wallet. More than all the money in the world. So, $10,000, no witnesses, dying mother. You still think you'd return it? Be honest in the comments. I'll wait. Hit that like button, smash subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this. Because the next one might test you.